Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started with the morning plenary session. Can everybody hear me online? Or someone give me a thumbs up? Great, awesome. Okay, thank you all for coming back on this Wednesday for FHIR DevDays. We are super excited to be having and introducing our newest HL7 executives. For those who don't know, there's 2 new divisions within the HL7 community for us to have our fearless leaders, the implementation and standards divisions. And so our 3 leaders are the newest addition to the executive team, and we'll be introducing them. So Dan, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and talk a little bit about what this means for the community?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Dan Vreeman, HL7's Chief Standards Development Officer. I'm a physical therapist by clinical training. So for those of you outside the US, it's physiotherapist. But also an informatician, and I've really spent my whole career focused on data standards and interoperability, including leading the development of LOINC at Reagan Street for about 10 years, and been really excited to participate in the HL7 community. If we haven't met each other yet, and you're looking for a conversation starter, you can ask me about a special family project that we've been working on to build brighter tomorrows through education. My role at HL7 is to help coordinate the activities that develop standards, how we make them available to the community, and how we maintain them over time. And HL7 has been in this work for almost 40 years now. And even as FHIR is now 10 years mature, it's amazing how transformative we see the landscape happening before us. This is important both externally to HL7 as the health ecosystem is transformed, but also internally at HL7 in terms of how we develop standards. And so when I think ahead about the next epoch of interoperability and what we need to do at HL7 to keep up with that and to advance interoperability, I think about who needs to be participating, who's not already. How do we make a continuously welcoming community, as well as produce standards in an efficient way that responds to the needs of the community. And that's where all of you come in, because what we really need are these boundary walkers, people who go between the work of developing and implementing standards-based solutions and taking those lessons about what worked and what was really hard back to the standards development and consensus building process so that we can continue to improve.
I love that, and we talk about it as the chasm, or for those who are away from us, the chasm. And so I really appreciate that, Dan. That's helpful. And Diego, would you like to introduce yourself and talk about what this means for implementation and how we're going to support moving from legacy systems into FHIR, or even if we should?
Yeah, I'm the new Deputy Chief Standards Implementation Officer, Diego Kaminker. I'm working with HL7 since 1999. Some of you weren't even born. I checked that, yes. It's not a joke. It's funny, but it's not a joke. So my vision and our vision is to make standards really implementable, to make people understand what to do. Because the question when you are implementing, when you're a dev, is, what do I need? What are they asking from me? And we try to do that more clear. And in terms of our legacy standards, some of you didn't even know they exist, but they are the backbone of the healthcare industry, and we need to take care of how to get data from these old or systems that are still using these standards. I myself have a lot of them. So you need to have some way to get the information from these systems and eventually get the information back. So we need to be aware of our legacy standards, and we need to create transformations that are easy to use. It's not very straightforward, but we need to at least getting the 80-20 rule, have something to offer the community and to work with the community.
Great, thank you, Diego. And for our final introduction, Viet, I would love to hear an introduction from yourself, as well as something about what keeps you up at night and what we can do about it.
Sure, so I'm Viet Nguyen. I'm a physician by training, internist, pediatrician, and informaticist. I've actually known Dan now for 20 years because we trained in informatics at the same time. And I've been part of the HL7 community for most of the last 20 years and have been helping support the Da Vinci project for the last 4 or so. And I think the thing that keeps me up at night is, do we have enough, not only in our standards and our artifacts from our standards, but also in the tools, the education, the processes, and the engagement to the community that will allow us to scale FHIR and the use of APIs in healthcare in the same way that we've been able to, as a broader industry, scale technology to support e-commerce, travel, and fintech. My hope would be that in 20 years, FHIR and these kind of technologies and knowledge would be common, and that it wouldn't be difficult or special to have to find somebody who has the technical skills, the clinical skills, and the analyst skills, because we have an industry, a health IT industry that has plenty of individuals that can help organizations and individuals, patients, providers to engage in the healthcare industry and get what they need out of it.
Awesome, thank you. And for those who don't know me, I'm Vivian. I've crowdsourced some of these questions, but I think we left the most profound one, an important one, for the closing remarks. And so I would like to invite the 3 of you to answer. What is your favorite resource? Dan, I'll have you go first.
Favorite resource. Okay, so you know that I love observation because it's like the heartbeat of health data exchange. And as you might be aware, the O in LOINC stands for observation. But for my choice, my favorite pick, I've got to go with a cult favorite, Code System. So Code System is important because it's part of the FHIR standard that's underappreciated in terms of how it connects the terminology artifacts and how to interact with them with the same informational infrastructure stack that you use to interact with health data exchange. And so for that, I'm going to go with Code System.
Love that. Diego?
I have 2.
That wasn't the question.
In order, observation and questionnaire, because they are free. You can do whatever you want with them.
So I was going to equivocate and say I love all the resources, but in reality, I think I love the one that we should really always start with, which is the patient resource, because at the heart of what we do is the care of the patient and our population of patients. So even though at the core resource that nothing is required, we need that resource because it's really, the patient is at the heart of why we're here.
Awesome, thank y'all. And for those who didn't get the opportunity, the 3 of them did an amazing presentation yesterday. It is recorded. I suggest you go rewatch it about kind of the vision for what's going to be happening with the implementation division. So thank you 3 for fearlessly leading us. And we would like to welcome Alyssa Knight to the presentation. Alyssa is going to be presenting remotely, so I want to make sure that she's available. And we'll exit when she's ready. Is she?
Yeah, good morning. Can everyone hear me?
Awesome. Yes, we can. And we'd like to thank you so much for coming to us. Everyone, this is Alyssa Knight, partner at Knight Services.
Yeah, hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for joining me. If it's okay with the team, I'll go ahead and get started. Can you see my screen okay? Ward, Lynn, can anyone see my screen?
Yes, we can. Thank you so much.
Okay, fantastic. Awesome. So I like to, I want to start my presentation out with this quote. It's my favorite quote, and I think it says a lot. And that's, if I were to advise a hostile nation state on how to take down the United States, I'd tell them to start with the APIs first. And it's really so true, because APIs, as all of you know, are really the plumbing for our entire infrastructure. healthcare, financial services. For any of you who've seen my research and are familiar with me, you know that I've pretty much been recently branded as an API hacker. It started really in 2019 when I began hacking 30 financial services mobile apps and fintech mobile apps in less than a week. I was able to successfully compromise 30 FinServ and fintech companies. In 2020, hacking 30 mHealth apps and APIs, taking remote control of federal and state law enforcement vehicles to their APIs, and then hacking FHIR APIs in 2021. And then 55 banking cryptocurrency exchanges as well. So, you know, it really is the underbelly to our entire critical infrastructure, which is why I feel that this is such an important space for us to be doing vulnerability research. For those of you who don't know who I am, I'm a recovering hacker of 22 years. And I started and sold several cybersecurity startups beginning at the age of 20. I started my first company when I was 17. Sold it when I was 20, and then I sold my second successful startup when I was 27. My background is a typical Hollywood story. I hacked into a government network when I was 17, was arrested, the charges were dropped, and I went to go work for the US intelligence community in cyber warfare. I am a hacker turned screenwriter or filmmaker now. As a matter of fact, I'm here, unfortunately, because I would have joined all of you. I apologize, but I'm here in San Francisco for the RSA conference, and our new film is premiering at AMC movie theaters. So we're doing a series of different films in the cybercrime genre. And so, yeah, I'm a content creator and filmmaker for cybersecurity vendors. Right. So what the heck is playing with FHIR? So there was a lot of, I'm sure you can imagine, a lot of controversy that sort of surrounded this research report. For those of you in the audience who remember what sort of ensued on Twitter when this was released, I think there was a lot of misunderstanding on exactly what it was. But I kind of want to talk about that right now before we get into the results of the research. First and foremost, I want to make sure everyone understands that this was in fact a white paper. It wasn't a vulnerability advisory. So a lot of the comments that came back was, why isn't this properly formatted as an advisory? Why is there no proper disclosure being followed here? Because it was a white paper, which was sponsored by our client, which at the time was Approve. And so what cybersecurity vendors will do is they'll approach me and say, hey, Alyssa, we have this API security product, and we would like you to work with these companies and hack their APIs. And we would like you to write about it in your experience and what your findings were, so we can prove the efficacy of our product by hacking something. It was a concept that I created called adversarial research. And so that's exactly what this was. I wasn't out to get anyone. I don't have a thing for, going after, these different companies, what are HMRs, EDRs. It really, for me, it was about the research in the white paper. So really, again, I want to be very clear about this, is also the fact that this is my last time presenting this research. This will be the last conference I'll be presenting this research at. HL7 has been phenomenal when this came out. I actually, unfortunately, thought at the time that I was going to be villainized by the HL7, and Graham and John Merck, all of them were amazing and were super collaborative. Brought me into the security working group meetings and worked very closely with them in sort of what followed after the release of this research. So I want to thank HL7 for this collaboration and really wanting to take this research and make things better, which I have a great deal of respect for them for doing. So just a little bit of information on the research itself. I targeted 3 production FHIR APIs, serving an ecosystem of 48 apps and APIs that were tested in the backend. The ecosystem coverage covered aggregated EHR data from 25,000 providers and payers, I was able to gain unauthorized access to roughly 4 million patient clinician records from one single patient login account. 53% of the mobile apps tested had hard-coded API keys and tokens, which could be used to attack EHR APIs. So that's a really important distinction I want to point out is, you know, a lot of the apps that I looked at and tested, I used what's called static code analysis or dead code analysis, where I reverse engineered the mobile app. And even in 2022, am still seeing companies hard code API keys and tokens in their apps. For those of you who in the audience who don't know what that means, it basically is like the password to the API, if you will. Especially depending on how they're using the token or the key, can gain you access as if you had an authorized account to log in. 100% of the FHIR APIs tested allowed API access to other patients' health data using one patient's credentials. So there was a clear breakdown here with the APIs implementing authorization. So a lot of them, a lot of the developers had properly authenticated me, but in my research found that they weren't properly authorizing me. So I was authenticated, I was allowed to be logged in, I was allowed to be there, but I wasn't authorized to request the data that I was requesting. 50% of the clinical data aggregators did not implement database segmentation, allowing access to patient records belonging to other apps developed on their platform for other players. Okay, so this was a really interesting finding. As a matter of fact, I had to reach out to John and Graham really to fully understand what these companies were doing and how I could explain it. But basically, these were platforms. So they offered a platform for companies to develop an app on their system. And I guess basically they would provide the FHIR infrastructure. So I guess you could say they had multiple business models. And so what I found was that if I was working with a company that was on this platform, for some reason, the backend data where this information was being pulled from their app that they had developed on the platform, I could reach the data of other apps that were part of that same platform. So there was just absolutely no segregation of data whatsoever. So how do you look at this from an architecture perspective? I'm very architecture oriented, so I like to draw things out. So basically this is, in working with one of the companies, found that this is exactly what was going on. So these, what I called clinical data aggregators in my research, would pull from these different EHR systems for these different healthcare providers and payers, and that data would then get pulled into a central FHIR store for that platform. And then using that FHIR API would offer a developer platform for different companies to come in and develop on their platform. I guess someone keep me honest here, but what I like to call them is, or like to think of them as kind of like FHIR as a service, if you will. I don't know how accurate that is, but that's what I've been considering. It's kind of like FHIR as a service. So, you know, if I was a startup company and I needed some sort of an infrastructure to build on, this is where I would do it, I suppose. So this was me as the adversary coming in from the internet, basically hacking one of the mobile apps and APIs of one of the developers, and then giving me access to all of the data from these other developers on the same data aggregators platform. So for me as an adversary, why would I hack 1,000 hospitals when I could just hack one clinical data aggregator that is pulling all of their data anyway, right? So there's all sorts of questions and challenges around HIPAA when something like this happens, but that was clearly out of scope for the research. So I want to talk quickly about BOLA. So for those of you who are not aware, there's something called the OWASP, Open Web Application Security something. Anyway, it's a consortium, and they published initially what was called the OWASP Top 10, which was the top 10 vulnerabilities affecting web applications. And then they subsequently in 2019 published the release of what's called the OWASP API Security Top 10. And that OWASP API Security Top 10, #1 finding is BOLA, or what's called broken object level authorization. So let me quickly explain that for those of you who are kind of looking like a deer in headlights and don't know what that means. So BOLA is basically a type of exploitation for authorization or business logic. So what happens is that, let's say you have an API that's vulnerable to BOLA. It has an object ID being exposed where you're getting /patient/1001. I can then test or mutate that parameter or that object ID and change it to patient/100. And if I'm able to access that patient record, it is what is called a BOLA attack, where maybe some OAuth 2 tokens are being used, but there aren't proper scopes applied or anything that prevents me from accessing other patient data besides my own. A great example or analogy that I like to use for BOLA attacks is when you have a car. Let's say, for example, I want to steal, we'll pick on Graham for a minute, or Ward. Ward is driving around in a Lamborghini. And hey, I would love to steal that Lamborghini. Ward drives up to a restaurant, hands his keys to the valet, who then parks his Lamborghini. I pull up behind him in a Hyundai. Not that there's anything wrong with Hyundai, but I pull up in a Hyundai and hand my keys to the valet. And then at that point, see that Ward was handed the ticket number, 47. And then I get handed, ticket number 46. So basically, if I go back and change a Sharpie, right, take a Sharpie and then I change that number, give it back and make that 47 somehow, or, he got 48 and I got 47. I changed my 7 to an 8, give it back to the valet. I then get Ward's Lamborghini and then I drive off. So that's a great example of a BOLA attack. So I'm authenticated, meaning I have a valet ticket, but I'm not authorized to drive away with Ward's Lamborghini. That's a perfect example of what a BOLA attack is. So I have an OAuth token. I'm allowed to be talking to that API. I'm authenticated, but I don't have the access to request the patient records or the prescription records that I was able to access. And I do want to make a note of that. I don't know, I can't recall if it's on any of my slides, but basically with the findings in this research, I was able to actually access prescriptions for other patients and even actually modify them with these BOLA vulnerabilities. So you're probably sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, Les, okay, this all sounds amazing, but get to the meat of the sandwich. What the heck were your findings? Many of the people I spoke to told me that this wasn't possible. So I decided, why not prove it was possible by actually giving you guys all screenshots of my findings. So in this particular case, this was a screenshot of one particular record containing patient information. One of the tools that I used, I should probably talk about my tool sets that I used for those more technical people in the audience who are penetration testers and want to know how I did this. One of the things that you'll see here is a screenshot of Postman. So an amazing API client, Postman, for your in the audience. I love Postman. I love the tool. I also used SSL MIDM, which is basically, or MIDM proxy, which is basically what I like to call a woman in the middle attack or a man in the middle attack tool. But basically what it allows you to do, along with another tool I use called Burp Suite, is you basically set it up as a proxy, and then you point your mobile app or your web browser at Burp Suite or MIDM proxy, and it will actually decrypt the session and allow you to look at the API endpoints, how the API client is interacting with that API endpoint. One of the findings here is excessive data exposure, API through 2019. This API through 2019 is just a reference to the OWASP API Security Top 10 item. This is clearly an excessive data exposure, broken object level authorization, broken authentication vulnerability. What happened was there was some sort of vulnerability or issue I don't know what the developer was thinking when they did this, but basically when I logged into the API, what it was doing is it sent me all of the patient records, all of the clinician records from the API. Don't ask me why they were doing this. I have no clue. But what I found was when I logged in with the app, with the API app, it was actually only showing me my record. So this is what I surmised was going on. What the developer did was they basically pounded the API client with all of the data and then used the client to filter out what you could see based on who you were logged in as. This is incredibly dangerous. If there's any developers in the audience, don't do this. It is very possible, as you can see here, where it's possible to actually go in there, not use the client, and then just send the same API request with an API client as long as you know the parameters. And because I'm sending a certificate in both direction, because the developers didn't implement what's called certificate pinning, I was able to decrypt a session, send my own certificate to the API endpoint and the mobile app, and actually capture that traffic and then decrypt it. So yeah, again, major fail by this company. I don't know why they were doing this, but it was incredibly dangerous. Accessing other patient records is myself. This was a BOLA vulnerability, basically logged in and was able to specify the patient records of other patients in the system. Here, I'm obviously blurring out a lot of this data to protect the companies that I was working with, but basically, yeah, I was logged in as one patient, and because of improper object ID, user input sanitization, I was able to specify the object IDs of other patients. This is a screenshot of all the API keys and tokens. This was incredibly shocking. I found hard-coded keys and tokens for things like AWS, some Azure stuff, just third parties, even third-party payment processors. This is a real systemic problem, and this isn't a healthcare problem. This is an everyone problem. I do want to make it clear that this is a very common finding for me in a lot of sectors, whether it's financial services and fintech as well. But what I find is they'll just hard code a very critical key or token into the app and not realize that I can use something like APK extractor and extract that Android app off the phone, load it into a framework called Mobile Security Framework, or MobSF. For those of you interested, you can go download it for free from GitHub. And it will actually reverse the app back to the source code, and you can go through it and comb it and search for hard-coded keys and tokens in the app. So that's exactly what you're seeing a screenshot here of. Now, I want to let you know, my biggest problem is always trying to fit thousands of keys on a PowerPoint slide. I had no idea how to do it. So this is just one screenshot. I don't want you to think that this is the only keys and tokens that I found. There were thousands of them. So the attention around this, of course, was huge. An article in Forbes on me and the FHIR API vulnerabilities was published. A lot of organizations and news agencies reached out. The really cool thing was the Office of the Inspector General for Health and Human Services reached out to me, the day that the report was released, and let me know that their teams were in receipt of the report, that they were reviewing it, and they were working to, address the issues in the report. So the neat thing about this and the cooperation and partnership with HL7 and with Graham and team and being a part of having something like this actually shape public policy and moving forward with FHIR and the standard is just an honor. And knowing that, and privilege, that's what I love about vulnerability research is it's almost like holding the feet to the fire of these companies saying, look, you are You are using very, very sensitive data here. All of you think about this for a minute, right? If your debit card or your credit card is compromised, what does the bank do? They just send you a new credit card or debit card in the mail. What do you do if your healthcare data is compromised? What do you do if your PHI is compromised? I can't send you new health data in the mail when it's been compromised if it's for sale on the dark web. And so it's what I love about vulnerability research like this is it is an impetus for change. And a lot of these corporations and companies that I worked with who were just frankly awesome in this collaboration and wanting to do better and make more secure software, reached out, and a lot of it is more secure and better because of it. So what do we do now? You're like, okay, Alyssa, the sky is falling. How do we fix this? Well, the sky isn't falling yet. First of all, hack your own APIs. You'd be shocked how many companies I spoke to that told me that they weren't doing penetration testing. You need to hack your own apps and APIs before the bad girls do. This is really important. You can't fix what you don't know you have. If you don't know your own vulnerabilities, what's going to happen is adversaries or black hats are going to find them for you. Authenticate and authorize your traffic. Stop forgetting about authorization. Stop forgetting about that. A lot of you are doing a great job at authentication, but you need to remember there's another A in there called authorize. Zero trust. Don't trust the application. Don't trust the user. Don't even trust the data, and don't trust the infrastructure. I would beg the FHIR and healthcare security community to start moving towards a zero trust or ZTS, zero trust security approach, where you're not even trusting your own app. You're not trusting the device that it's running on. A lot of these apps that I was using had protections in there to look for jailrooted or jailbroken phones. And I didn't even need to use a rooted or jailbroken phone to do this research. So stop trusting these devices and this infrastructure and implement zero trust. Implement WIDM protections for your mobile apps. I was shocked how many apps did not implement certificate pinning. This is basically where you hard code, if you will, the root certificate for what you are willing to accept as an SSL certificate from the backend. A lot of apps are not implementing certificate pinning. You need to do this. Now, I do want to caution you that this isn't a silver bullet. I can use a tool called FHIR that will actually bypass certificate pinning, but it at least is going to get rid of a lot of the low-hanging fruit and address some of the issues that, let me put it this way. You want to make it as hard as possible for the adversary so they move on to a softer target. I'm not going to waste my time trying to get around something when I can just go after other targets. Stop hard coding API keys and tokens in your app. If you're saying, hey, look, Alyssa, we have to do this, what's the alternative? Hard code it in the app, but obfuscate the code. There's even free tools out there that you can do this, but obfuscate and use white box encryption and obfuscate those keys and tokens. Just stop putting them in plain text. Observability, find an API threat management solution that gives you the observability and being able to map out the attack surface. You can't protect what you don't know you have. A lot of the organizations that I was working with in this research didn't even know how many APIs they had out there. You all need to understand that we're now in an API first world, right? There's organizations that are have gone from running 50 APIs. I'm working with a company that's got over 6,000 APIs. So, that's a very important distinction. You need to know what you're trying to protect. A lot of the API threat management solutions out there, like No Name Security and other companies like that, they will actually map out your APIs and tell you what's out there and what data they're serving. So don't use the wrong tool for the job. Okay, I want to make this abundantly clear. A lot of the companies were companies that I was attacking the research were using WAFs or web application firewalls. Those are great for securing web servers, but they're not going to catch things like BOLA vulnerabilities. They're not going to catch things where I'm authenticated, but I'm requesting the data of another patient. A WAF is a rules-based system that isn't going to be able to understand that. And then prevent synthetic traffic in the first place. Prevent a tool that's generating traffic, like synthetic traffic or non-human traffic, going to your APIs. There's a lot of solutions that will prevent that. This is a great way to prevent automated hacking tools that are targeting your APIs with credential stuffing and other attacks like that. So that's it. You survived my keynote. So definitely support my research. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Pretty much all of my vulnerability research and videos on how to do things like hacking the FHIR APIs and other vulnerability research that I've done goes onto my YouTube channel first. So thank you very much for having me as a keynote speaker. I appreciate all of you.
Thank you, Alyssa. Thanks a lot. Thank you, Alyssa. I'm not Vivian now suddenly with a male voice and having a Dutch accent. This is Ewout. And I enjoyed, yeah, you can see me now. I enjoyed your presentation. Actually, one of the bullets reminded me of how I protect my bicycle in Amsterdam. You know, bicycle theft is a big thing. And what I do when I present my, when I lock my bike, when I park my bike at Central Station, for example, I need to have one lock more than my neighbor. That's like finding the soft target, right? If you make it hard enough, they start looking for something else. So I remember that one.
Exactly, and a great example, and I like to talk about is you know, adopting security like layers of an onion. So for all of you who are like, oh, you know, we need this one firewall or we need this one security solution, I would propose that I like to look at things like layers of an onion, where security should be in layers, just like your multiple bike locks on your bicycle, right? That's layers of protection. So if I have to break through one lock, maybe I'm going to be too lazy to break through a second lock, right? And you all need to understand, hackers are inherently lazy. We are lazy people. If his bike has 2 locks on it, or your API has multiple security controls, then I'm going to just move on to a softer target where I can get in and out a lot quicker.
Excellent, thanks. Well, thank you again, and I'll continue with the household stuff here. So I guess that doesn't not really much interest of you, but thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, everyone.
So before I let you go, I have a list of. Is the echo in the Hoover gone? Does that have something to do with my mic, or? You're fine. Okay, good. Let's see. Yeah, the most important thing, and it's only 9 now, but if you still need a test, the test crew at the entrance is here until 11, and this maybe only applies to people traveling and that require another test. The crew is still there. I think it was $28 or $23 for a test, so that's pretty good. If you need them, they'll be there until 11, and they'll leave at 11 sharp. Another thing is that, and you know this if you've been at other DevDays or you've looked at the pictures, is that we try to get a group photo with everyone. I mean, that's everyone present here. And we'll try to do that at 1 o'clock in the atrium. So that's just here, you know, the sunny thing on the corner. Tonight is the social event at 6:30. It's not too far from where the opening reception was. It's a 20-minute walk, so, or you can take the scooters. But we'll start at 6:30. Then, and I missed out on this one yesterday, I will definitely try to get this done today. There is there's chair massage and yoga set up right there in the atrium. You know, if you go up the stairs there next to the guitar, you can get a massage. And I think there is also a chair yoga program today, but I'm not too sure. And I'd like to tell you about the plan that HL7 is running about growing trees. You might have noticed that at the HL7 booth, there is this plexiglass thing with little woody things in it, and that's actually a campaign where you can, for every single dollar, and you can donate more, but for every single dollar that you donate, you'll get a tree. And actually, when we get to 250 today, we'll be able to plant 1 million trees. I don't know exactly how that works, but that's maybe nature's magic. But if we get to 250 trees, HL7 will plant 1 million trees. So just pass by the booth and donate a few dollars so we can get to those 250 trees. I figure we should be able to get there. And then finally, and this is personal interest. In the FHIR booth, we have these playing cards, and I know these will be classics, just like our quartets and other ones. But please come to the booth and pick them up, because otherwise I will have to carry them back in the plane to Amsterdam. I don't really want to do that, so please come to our booth and take one. That's about it. Enjoy your day, and I'm going to see you at, I guess, today and otherwise certainly tonight at the social event. Thank you.